pretty striking, the differences by, income, education, race, ethnicity. You all see all of these see pretty, I would say fairly large and quite significant effects. And I think it's pretty clear that that the continued exposures are, I don't think I cannot say this causally, right? But it's clear that that's an additional factor that could be affecting the caseloads that we're seeing. So when COVID hit, right, there's this natural question to apply this basic technique of looking at how mobility differs from one neighborhood to another in this current context where all of a sudden we're getting this enormous shock to the mobility behaviors, both because everybody is, reducing their mobility as a response, but also because there's government orders and so forth, and kids, schools are being closed. And for me, the particular question of interest, because I'm interested in neighborhoods, is how does this vary neighborhood by neighborhood, even within individual jurisdictions, right? Even within Chicago, you see very different, or not very different, but measurably different continued spatial behaviors in terms of going out, in terms of using public resources and so forth across the city. And that's what these works show. So what you see is throughout the entire city, and I did this for New York and I did it for Chicago. Throughout both cities, you see these enormous reductions in the out-of-home behaviors and the continuing exposures to other people, and the use of parks and so forth. So everything drops very dramatically. But what I was interested in were the differential drops within neighborhoods. Across neighborhoods within the city. And what you see is, I would say fairly large differentials between, in particular, Black and non-Black neighborhoods. In Chicago, there's sort of two kinds of neighborhoods. There's Black and there's non-Black. It's like, it's an incredibly segregated city, right? A huge fraction of the city has more than 90% Black or less than 10% Black. And in between those two cases, you see a difference with respect to the original amount that people were out of about 10%. And so that means that there's about a 20% difference in the residual amount of movement between the Black neighborhoods and the non-Black neighborhoods. You also see, you can do the same analysis for, ethnicity. The impact is similar for Hispanics, although it's not as statistically significant. And you can do it for educational attainment. I think it's really natural to suppose that all the people who have PhDs and advanced degrees and can work at home, those are the people who can shelter in place really effectively, and the people who don't have all the advanced degrees, in order to keep their jobs, need to continue to be physically going out. And you do indeed see that in Chicago. The things that you think of in the city as being like exciting and appealing, right? The commerce, the loop, and so forth, right? Parks, all of those regions of the city are accessed dramatically more by the people who live in the tracts that have like higher educational attainment, higher income, and so forth. A lot of my work has focused specifically on parks of late. And so this is a quote unquote free resource, but it's only free in a certain sense, right? You need to live near a park, right? You need to have time to use the park. I live near a park, and I probably pay part of my rent is probably going for the fact that it's easy for me to get to a park. Access to the park is not a public resource. And what we see in just so many ways is that mobility to the things that you think of as being refreshing, rejuvenating, exciting in the city, there's a huge differential in access to that at baseline. There's also other factors, right? Like you aren't going to, if you have lower employment in an area, you're going to have people leaving their home less also, right? And so there's a number of factors, but really you see that the baseline ways that people interact with their immediate surroundings, right, their immediate neighborhood, and with the city at large are really dramatically different. And those are things that I don't think of as being like necessarily paying things like parks or visiting parts of the city. But there's huge differentials in how people access those at baseline. And that goes by race, that goes by ethnicity, that goes by income, education, and so forth.